Okay. So we're going to be getting into session 15 today, which is a good one. I'm really excited for this one. We'll see if we can get through it in one. It's a bit on the longer side, but I think we could probably cover it in 1 week. So let's just see how it goes. And if we need to slow down and break it into two, that's fine too, because it's worth it. It's got some core concepts and teachings in it. So before we start reading, I just want to offer my thanks and gratitude to those of Ra and those of the Confederation of Planets in Service to the Infinite Creator for not only making these teachings available, but also continuing to be with us as we study, as we walk our spiritual journeys, and as this planetary evolution unfolds. And we thank those beings that serve to help this transition be as positive, as fruitful, and as helpful as it can be. And I also offer my thanks to LL Research Group for their impeccable stewardship of this information, helping it come through and also helping it be available to seekers all over the world. So we thank all those that allow us to do this study. So my thanks and love go out to all of those beings. Okay, session 15. Anybody want to start us off with the reading?
I'll start.
Thanks, Scott.
I am Ra. I greet you in the love and the light of the infinite creator. I communicate now. Questioner. I would like to apologize for my past and future stupid questions due to the fact that I am searching for the proper entry into investigating the law of one. We will be eliminating the stupid ones from the book. I would like to ask if the use of the instrument is a function of the time we use the instrument or the amount of information, or the number of words the instrument gives. In other words, do I have to hurry and ask the questions, or can I take my time to ask the questions? Ra, I am Ra. There are two portions to your query. Firstly, this instrument's reserve of vital energy, which is a product of body, mind, and spirit distortions in the various complexes, is the key to the length of time which we may expend using this instrument. We searched your group when we contacted you, for each in your group possesses significantly more vital energy of the body complex. However, this instrument was tuned most appropriately by the mind-body-spirit complex distortions of its beingness in this illusion. Therefore, we remained with this instrument. Scroll. Secondly, we communicate at a set rate which is dependent upon our careful manipulation of this instrument. We cannot be more, as you would say, quick. Therefore, you may ask questions speedily, but the answers we have to offer are at a set pace given. Questioner. This isn't exactly what I meant. If it takes me, say, 45 minutes to ask my questions, does that give the instrument only 15 minutes to answer rather than an hour? Or would we run over an hour and the instrument could answer for more? I am Ra. The energy required for this contact is entered into this instrument by a function of time. Therefore, the time is the factor as we understand your query. Questioner. Then I should ask my questions rapidly so that I do not reduce the time. Is this correct? I am wrong. You shall do as you deem fit. However, we may suggest that to obtain the answers you require may mean that you invest some of what you experience as time. Although you lose the answer time, you gain thereby in the specificity of the answer. As many times in the past, we have needed clarification of hastily phrased questions. Questioner. Thank you.
Let's just pause there for just a second, Scott.
Okay.
Thanks. Yeah, so it's mostly contact maintenance related, but it's sort of interesting metaphysically. It's an interesting question that Donna asks, basically like, what is the cap on how much we can get done in one working? Is it a factor of time? Is it a factor of words? Is it a factor, he's trying to understand the principles at play. And Ra's response is like, yeah, it is basically like time. And Don's trying to squeeze as much in as possible. He's so thrilled to have this contact. This is like the pinnacle of his life's work, and he's trying to just squeeze as much as he can out of it. And, you know, in the beginning, he's, you know, he apologizes for his past mistakes and stupid questions. I'm searching for the proper entry into investigating the law of one. And, you know, it strikes me that like, there is nothing outside of the law of one. There's nothing you could talk about or explore or investigate that would not be the law of one. And of course, there are questions and portions of inquiry that are more central to the question. But anyway, he's just, I don't know, I just felt like I wanted to say it's just so sweet. He's so earnest in his seeking, and it's so clear that he just wants to do such a good job. He's a little hard on himself, and I relate to Don in that way. I really sometimes feel that way myself. Yeah, any other thing anyone else wanted to say about that opening info?
It's a good reminder also for how Ra answers that answers about hastily asked questions, and how important it is that we show up with as much dedication and consciousness as we can when we're talking with other beings, or when we're praying, that we, you know, like put in the intention to get the most out of what it is we're searching for.
Right, totally. Yeah, and they also seem to suggest that like, well, if you just take time to carefully say what your question is, it may also you know, it may kind of get to Don's point of like making efficient use of their time together by the specificity, you know. And it's important also to be clear and to just take, you know, to invest time, for each of us to invest time and like really come in contact with the essence of what it is that we're seeking. That can really help too. And in this context can help them.
Well, one observation I have also is it's pretty early in the sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine, and it seems like there's like Don's still figuring out how to communicate with a sixth density consciousness. You know
That's
what I mean?
right.
We don't have the linear thinking so much that we do, and that, you know, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I know they're only like 2 weeks in or something. We're on session 15, but they were jamming on the sessions in the beginning. They were doing them like twice a day sometimes.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good point. They're still early. Don's getting his footing. He was so well prepared for this work. He's uniquely suited to be sitting in the role of the questioner, in my opinion.
I can only imagine what it's like to make contact with a sixth density social memory complex.
Yeah.
That concept wasn't even in my mind before, you know?
Right. Right. Well, in this way, we all get contact, y'all. I am certain of the fact that we all make contact with sixth density teachers, but it's just a part of the texture of our consciousness. We wouldn't notice it in our dreams, in our meditations, in our inspirations. It's my belief that some of that is influenced by communication from our higher selves and from maybe our home, you know, our home team, if we are wanderers. But it's different than like talking out loud with them and like having a conversation in space-time. Yeah, totally. What a trip. Has everyone, I assume everyone has everyone listened to the recordings of these channelings? Has everyone heard Carla? I highly recommend it. It really changes, it just adds dimension to what was going on here. It's a really unique cadence. Like when you hear her speak, when you hear Ra speaking through Carla, it's super apparent it's not Carla. And it's consistent through all 106 sessions. They speak very slowly, each word at a time. I mean, it's like, what? It's crazy. I recommend it. You know, there's recordings on the website, LL's website, and also on the lawofone.info. You can just randomly listen to one. I highly recommend it. It really, it did a lot for me to hear that.
Practice and patience, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, 15.4. Anyone else want to pick up?
I can read.
Okay.
Questioner, thank you. First question is, why does rapid aging occur on this planet? I'm Ra. Rapid aging occurs upon this third density planet due to an ongoing imbalance of the receptor web complex in the etheric portion of the energy field of this planet. The thought form distortions of your peoples have caused the energy streamings to enter the planetary magnetic atmosphere, if you would so term this web of energy patterns, in such a way that the proper streamings are not correctly imbued with balanced vibratory light love from the, shall we say, cosmic level of this octave of existence. Questioner, do I assume correctly in assuming that one of your attempts in service to this planet was to help the population of this planet more fully understand and practice the law of one so that this aging, rapid aging, could be changed to normal aging? I'm Ra. You assume correctly to a great degree. Questioner, then it would be very beneficial for the people of this planet in practicing the law of one to learn ways of service. Am I correct? I'm Ra. You are correct. If you will observe those oriented through a lifetime experiential distortion complex from the near beginning of that experience, you will observe a relatively youthful, as you would call it, appearance. Questioner, what is the greatest service that our population on this planet could perform individually? I'm Ra. There is but one service. The law is one. The offering of self to Creator is the greatest service, the unity, the fountainhead. The entity who seeks the one Creator is with infinite intelligence. From this seeking, from this offering, a great multiplicity of opportunities will evolve depending upon the mind-body-spirit complex's distortions with regard to the various illusory aspects or energy centers of the various complexes of your illusion. Thus, some become healers, some workers, some teachers, and so forth. Questioner, if an entity were perfectly balanced on this planet with respect to the law of one, would he undergo the aging process? I am Ra. A perfectly balanced entity would become tired rather than visibly aged. The lessons being learned, the entity would depart. However, this is appropriate and is a form of aging which your peoples do not experience. The understanding comes slowly, the body complex decomposing more rapidly. Questioner, can you tell me a little bit about the definition of the word balancing as we are using it? I am Ra. Picture, if you will, the one infinite. You have no picture. Thus the process begins. Love, creating light, becomes love light, streams into the planetary sphere according to the electromagnetic web of points or nexi of entrance. These streamings are then available to the individual who, like the planet, is a web of electromagnetic energy fields with points or nexi of entrance. In a balanced individual, each energy center is balanced and functioning brightly and fully. The blockages of your planetary sphere cause some distortion of intelligent energy. The blockages of the mind-body-spirit complex further distort or unbalance this energy. There's one energy. It may be understood as love light or light love or intelligent energy.
Okay, let's pause there. It's thick. These last few questions there's a lot to it. So including I wanted to like zoom in on 17 or 15.7, as I mentioned in the beginning, responding to you, Scott, in this question of like, how do we best serve? It's such a central question. It's, Don says, what is the greatest service that our population on this planet could perform individually? I mean, it's a question I think that I know I asked myself a lot over time, again and again. I hear other people asking this question. I've heard it so many times. And Ra's response is just it's so fascinating. And I just want to read it again. There is but one service. The law is one. The offering of self to Creator is the greatest service, the unity, the fountainhead. The entity who seeks the one Creator is with infinite intelligence.
Hmm.
What does it mean to you? What do y'all make of that? The entity who seeks the one creator is with infinite intelligence. Any thoughts?
I guess my response would be that, yeah, it is like the communication. Like, say if we put the question out, or we sit and do a vision quest, or whatever it is we do, is like devote that to contact with the creator and to be of service, to get an answer to a prayer, or to a question. You know, how can I best serve as who I am? What is my gift? And that for each one of us is going to be unique. So yeah, there's just so many ways to serve. Like you said, some become healers, some become teachers. I have done a vision quest before, which was powerful. I spoke to that before. And I do, I do believe that, like, my work with Forest Floor, Nature Connection, all the stuff, the eight shields is there's so many complementary things with the eight shields too. Is definitely my language or my path or my calling to a certain extent. And also the other thing that in my life and I've thought about this before, like, how can I bring the two things that have been most impactful to my life is like the eight shields work, but also like indigenous wisdom and technologies and ceremonies and all that stuff. And then the circling. And the circling is just how powerful that is. And what it comes down to me is connection. Like, if I had to sum it up in one word, it's just connection.
Yeah.
That's my
Yuri, did you want to share?
Yeah, hi everyone. I believe he says about balancing all the energy centers till the sevens and reaching infinite intelligence, and yes, once someone reaches this state, then he can be the source of God or light or love on this planet, and with his or her condition transform being here, transform the planet and beings around.
Yeah.
So it's about the condition, the person, the spirit body, mind spirit body complex is in.
Yep.
And
Yeah, I
from
agree.
this state, from this state, someone can be playing different roles. Like he gives example, one can be healer, someone can be worker, someone can be teacher. But the most important is the state or condition the person is in. And when there is only will of creator or the unity, when the person start shining this state of unity.
Yeah, that's right. And I believe Ra says, it like speaks to that in another session when they say when an entity is in this state of making contact with intelligent infinity, balancing the lower chakras, just that condition is automatically positively polarizing for the planet. Just like you say, Yuri, like they describe that you don't even necessarily, like, once one is in that condition, activity is not even necessary. Just the state is influencing the vibratory nexus of the people around them and the planet by being in that state.
Yeah, I believe that actions are needed till the person reaches this state, and once she reaches it, then just being is enough. And I think those holy people who goes and offers their service in caves or wherever, in hidden places. They don't do anything, just they are in this state and transform humanity and the planet by this state.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, it's profound to think about that, and it's so beautiful. And Amanda, I see your hands raised. I just want to say one more thing in response to this. I totally agree with everything you said, Yuri, and I also want to offer a counterpoint, which is from 15.7, when Ra says, the entity who seeks the one creator is with infinite intelligence. And I think in that statement, they're saying something very different than like the state that you just described, Yuri. That doesn't mean that like, just in a moment you can choose to seek the creator and fully open to all that light. However, I do think it's as simple as like, as soon as we have the clarity to like seek like the deepest truth, to seek like, what am I? What is going on here? And really genuinely and earnestly hold that question and desire to know that, it starts the process. And I think my take on when they say the entity who seeks the one creator is with infinite intelligence, my take on that is that like that questioning, that questing is the creator's original desire. Like, I think the creator's original desire is to know its infinite self, is to know its infinite capacity and potential. And I believe that the creator generates the creation and the universe in order to give itself that opportunity. And we are the expression of that desire. And so when we seek the creator, we're with infinite intelligence because we're joining with the original will of the creator. We're joining with the original impulse of why this is all unfolding in the first place. Anyway, that's my take on that particular statement. And the reason I'm saying that is that it is a little bit simpler to contact that first point. Like, I feel like those holy ones who have made contact with intelligent infinity and are, in the seventh ray, in their beingness, started, that process began with the earnest desire to seek the creator. And I think another way of saying that is to seek truth, universal cosmic truth. Like, what is true? What am I? What is going on here? Anyway, okay, Amanda.
Yeah, I think between you all, you've definitely said what I've thought about, and it's been coming up for me a lot the last couple of weeks. Is I start off with the prayer, like, God, what would you have me do? And it's been really wild because I think I fancy my life purpose as being an energy healing practitioner. And so I try and do things that help to propel this like career / purpose of being an energy healing practitioner. And I know that comes from a really beautiful, earnest place of wanting to be of service. And also it is also sometimes an ego trap for me. And so I sat down in meditation a couple of weeks ago and I was like, you know what? Like, I just want to be of service to you and I want to do this thing. And I know this is the thing that I'm supposed to do, but it's not happening as organically or as easily as I thought that it would. And what was shown to me is just the importance of just asking every single day, what would you have me do? What would you have me do? What would you have me do? And then the last couple of weeks, the thing is, in my mind, it feels more selfish, but the thing that I've been led to do has been like, go play outside, roller skate a lot and garden a lot. And it fills me with so much joy and just that like sense of like life inside me. And I know that that's the signal that I'm with the creator, and that I'm following that divine intelligence. And so, I don't, I just think it's really cool. Like what would you have me do? And then doing it without thinking too much about like, well, is this service to others enough? Just trust it. So yeah,
Mhm.
I love it. That's all.
That's so awesome. Amanda, thank you for sharing that. It's really inspiring.
Yeah, thanks.
I used to, like when I was a kid, I went to church, like a Christian church. Well, my parents went to church, so I sort of tagged along. And one of the things that I remember that I really liked was like the saying, like, seek ye first the kingdom of God, something, something, and then everything else will basically be taken care of. And I definitely think there's truth to that. I never really understood what it meant to seek ye first the kingdom of God. Like how do you actually do that? But there's a lot that was discussed that like it's like from the higher perspective, things are more coordinated and organized anyways. So if you follow the plan that's made in the higher perspective, it'll probably work better than whatever plan you're going to make with your limited perspective. But yeah, I think there's some core Christian teachings that are also in line with what Ra is saying.
Yep. 100%. I mean, Ra says so, in another session, Ra says that, that the Bible and Christianity contains the law of one, contains the everything you need to seek and find the creator. And I think they also expose that there are distortions to that teaching as well. But for someone who's really dedicated, that path is so, it has all the tools you need to find God and live a good life. So, okay, so what about the piece about the definition of balancing and the planetary and personal energy centers and energy web?
Mhm.
Do any of you get a picture of that? Do any of you feel like you can imagine what Ra's talking about there? I'll just read Ra's response to 15.9 to get us back into it. I am Ra. Picture, if you will, the one infinite. You have no picture. Thus the process begins. Love creating light, becoming love light, streams into the planetary sphere according to the electromagnetic web of points or nexi of entrance. These streamings are then available to the individual who, like the planet, is a web of electromagnetic energy fields with points or nexi of entrance. And then it goes on to describe the individual, balanced individual. Yeah. Curious if any of you have any insights into that depiction of the energy web of either planet or people.
Well, I have images of like a grid around the earth, like just images that I've seen from different sources. There's like a grid around the earth. There's also from the Hindu tradition, like Indra's net, if you're familiar with that. And also like I'm thinking some of that Alex Gray work for sure, with the human body, there's like the energy patterns. So I'm picturing like types of grid, and then there's points on the earth that are centers, where like a lot of the grid comes together. What do you call it? There's a word for that, not portals. Anyways, similar to chakras in the body,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting. Before I came, in contact with that information, I was like, I never perceived the earth as having that level of consciousness or similarity, parallels to the chakra system.
Yep.
And one part that was struck me as curious was the distortions on the planetary energy field that were blockages, referring, I'm specifically to planet Earth as
Mhm.
an entity itself, right? So
Yep.
the human beings, like we have our just our blockages, whatever chakras or whatever, but then the planet has some blockages too. And how did that was that manifest because of the energy of human beings? I guess that's my question. How did that become those blockages on the Earth become manifest?
Yep. It's a great question. I'll give you my perspective, and it's just my perspective, but it's it seems pretty clear that you know, kind of in total, all of the activity of the human mind, all the people as a collective, you know, there is a mind, there's a level of mind that we share, the planetary mind, and it's a portion of the all mind. And so if a planet like ours has so much of a tendency towards bellicosity and disharmony, that is what creates the blockages in the planetary energy web. And I think that's the primary mechanism that led to the shortening of the lifespan. So it's like, because there's so much, distortion towards bellicosity, separation, warlike behavior, creates kind of a blockage in the energy system of the planet. And then, the cosmic energies that are available can't all get in. And those cosmic energies that are available can provide a 900-year-long human lifespan, but we don't enjoy that because of the blockage.
And because we're co-creating whatever we're co-creating with our consciousness, and then there's the law of magnetism too that maybe comes into play, where we're actually manifesting that.
Yep. Yeah, that's my understanding.
Mhm.
So basically we have like these physical bodies that we feed with food and stuff. And at the same time, we have these etheric energy bodies that are being fed through some sort of energy. And my understanding is they're not being fed. It's the equivalent of if we were eating, I guess, like fast food. A lot of people just do eat fast food all the time, but like energetically. So it is so my understanding is like there's two levels of like pollution in the energy. One is the whole planet is not getting the right energy food because it's off balance. And then at the individual level, there's a second filter of like individuals being imbalanced, so they're even getting worse energy. And that's why we're aging so quickly. Does that seem correct?
Yep, you got it. That's exactly right. And they say that, they refer to a person who, if kind of like from the very beginning of their life, if they just are naturally dedicated to helping others and being of service, they appear youthful even in old age. That makes sense to me. I've seen people like that who just have a twinkle and a sparkle in their eye, even when they're old. They just have a vitality to them. I've met people like that. And but even so, they still can't enjoy a 900-year lifespan because of the, so even if someone's relatively unblocked in their own patterns of thought and their own, distortions, they're still working within the larger template of the human body and the human condition, which is determined by the planetary, condition. So even if an entity comes in and they would make really good use of a 900-year-long lifespan, it's just not available because of the larger, condition, which kind of is the master condition that we then come in and experience our microcosmic version of.
Was there did Ross say something about like there was like some society, the last time there were people who lived 900 years, they were like super isolated off from like mainstream society, and as soon as you live in mainstream society, your lifespan is 100 years basically. Did I make that up, or did he say that?
No, it sounds I recognize what you're talking about. I'm just not sure if the correlation between the drop of lifespan had to do with coming in contact with kind of the mainstream. My understanding is that like it's just that when people were enjoying the full potential of lifespan. It was very early in the third density cycle of Earth. And at that point, all the different soul groups that were here were dispersed across the globe, and they were not interacting with each other. So I don't know if it was the causation of, I think it's just, yeah. I don't know if
That was
that makes
before
sense.
the energy field of the planet became so
Yeah.
universally messed up. Okay.
Yeah, that's my understanding. Yeah. Yuri?
Yeah, actually, I recall this passage, and it seems most of the people by this time were having very short lifespan, and those because they were separated, isolated, they had like 900 years lifespan, and I think it was like in the end of the second master cycle. So
Yeah.
it was there was big difference in lifespan, and they had longer because they were isolated.
Yeah. Thanks, Yuri. There's a list of figures in the Bible. I don't know the Bible very well. I've never read the whole thing, but I do know I have seen that there's the list of beings from important beings in the lineage, the biblical lineage, and their lifespans. And it starts at like 900, Methuselah and all these figures, and it starts at like 947 years. Some of them are like 1,000 years. And then they go down through time. Like that, it's an interesting artifact, like this historical record of biblical figures. I think they give their ages, and you can see that there is incredible. It's hard to believe that people could live for the number of years that are that supposedly they did. But that's an interesting correlation between the Bible and what Ra's talking about in the.
Yes, Aaron, I recall these numbers, but I have one question. Like the Bible describes the very latest or quite latest events, so to say. So like the last 6,000 years or so, according to some sources.
Yeah.
But this lifespan of 900 years, it was like in the very beginning of master cycle, like 75,000 years.
Right.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, right. Well, I just learned in the last year or two that the Bible is a compilation of all these different texts that were written over a vast period of time. I mean, not 70. I'm not talking about 75,000 years, but they were written over a period of at least hundreds of years. And some of the older texts were records of deep history, I think. That perspective doesn't really come through necessarily in the modern, unified Bible is one book, and I think most people don't realize or remember that it's actually a record of lots of different people and cultures over a long period of time, and then they were compiled into what we now receive as the Bible. But I think that some of those earlier portions of the Bible that became part of the Bible were a record of ancient times. I think they were.
Okay, yeah. Let's think of Moses. Yes, he was like not the very first in the very first part of the Bible, but quite earlier part.
Yeah.
And of course, Moses interacted with Egyptians.
Yeah.
So it's like 10,000 years ago or so, could be. And by that time, I think the lifespan was much shorter. So maybe it's just mixture of everything. But there is some not correspondence between the lifespan described in the Bible and information from Ra and all these things.
Yep.
Methuselah, the guy you're talking about, is talked about in Genesis.
Did you find a
just
reference
Googling
to it?
Yeah, it's Genesis 5:27. Genesis is about the birth of man, so who knows?
I've got a slide somewhere. It says it has the list. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I've got a
I
slide that
thought it was
lists.
later on in the raw material that we read about that, where Don's asking questions and they gave the information. Like I think Noah lived 835 years. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, here it is in Genesis. So this is a list of some of the figures, their lifespan, and where in Genesis they're named. So Adam lived 930 years, Seth 912, Enosh, Canaan, Mahalalel, Jared, Methuselah 969 years. That's the longest. But then, you know, as it goes on, as the story of Genesis goes on, that you can see that they get shorter. Lamech 777, Noah 950, Shem 600, etc. And by the end, Abraham only lived to be 175 years old. What a short life compared to some of these other. Who are these? These are like the fathers of Christianity or something. I don't know.
It seems Moses is not in the list, so it seems he had just a regular life,
Yeah,
probably.
I think so.
Wait, are there any women in there?
No, there are not.
It's a very patriarchal chart there.
It sure is.
I wonder. Have to ask the Aborigines.
Do you think that timeline starts at the beginning of the third cycle?
I mean,
When
I don't
did
know.
Ross
I don't.
say it started dropping? Was it the second or the third? At second cycle, it was still quite long, right? It was really at the third cycle that it really dropped.
I can see
I
the
don't
thing is, I
remember.
have the opposite impression. For some reason, I remember. I don't have a clear memory of what they said. I'd have to go back and look, but my impression is it started dropping off pretty quick. Like for some reason, I feel like, you know, so there's the thing about the distortions and the blockages in the energy and personal web. And then there's the other thing about if you don't make use of something, there's like a spiritual law that if you don't make use of something that's given, it not only does it not become useful to you, or it's not useful to you, but it becomes a hindrance, it becomes a liability. And I feel like the lifespan was something like that. Anyway, people weren't making good use of the long lifespan, and it kind of went sour quickly. But I don't know, maybe you're right, Shong. Maybe it was in the third master cycle. Maybe it wasn't, but somehow I remember it like it dropped off quickly. The 900
Yeah,
years.
I don't remember. It was either second or yeah.
Well, it would be probably easy enough to go find that. Okay, let's get back into the reading and pick up at 15.10, I believe.
Oh, hey, I found the answer. Can you
Okay,
tell me
go
the
ahead.
length of the average span in years at the end of the second major cycle? The average is perhaps misleading, probably because there's a lot of difference. To be precise, many spent approximately 35 to 40 of your years. Not considered normal, blah, 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 approaching 100 of years. Okay, so it went from 700 in the beginning to basically nothing at the end of it. It was during the second cycle.
Yeah,
the drastic drop happened.
right.
Yeah.
So it's a small drop in the first of the three major cycles from 900 to 700, it sounds like. And then during second, it was 700 way down.
On
to
average,
basically
right.
To basically what we have now. Yeah. Cool. Thanks for looking that up, Sean. That's one of your superpowers is like on the fly research. Thanks. Okay, are we ready to move on? Sound good? Okay. 15.10, questioner. Am I correct in assuming that one of the blockages of a mind-body-spirit complex might be due to an unbalance of, shall we say, ego? And this could be balanced using, say, a worthiness-unworthiness balance? I am Ra, this is incorrect. Questioner, can you tell me how you balance the ego? I am Ra. We cannot work with this concept as it is misapplied, and understanding cannot come from it. Questioner, how does an individual go about balancing himself? What is the first step? I am Ra. The steps are only one. That is, an understanding of the energy centers, which make up the mind-body-spirit complex. This understanding may be briefly summarized as follows. The first balancing is of the Malkuth, or Earth, vibratory energy complex, called the red ray complex. An understanding and acceptance of this energy is fundamental. The next energy complex, which may be blocked, is the emotional or personal complex, also known as the orange ray complex. This blockage will often demonstrate itself as personal eccentricities or distortions with regard to self-conscious understanding or acceptance of self. The third blockage resembles most closely that which you have called ego. It is the yellow ray or solar plexus center. Blockages in this center will often manifest as distortions towards power manipulation and other social behaviors concerning those close and those associated with the mind-body-spirit complex. Those with blockages in these first three energy centers, or nexi, will have continuing difficulties in ability to further their seeking of the law of one. The center of heart, or green ray, is the center from which third density beings may springboard, shall we say, towards infinite intelligence. Blockages in this area may manifest as difficulties in expressing what you may call universal love or compassion. The blue ray center of energy streaming is the center which, for the first time, is outgoing as well as inpouring. Those blocked in this area may have difficulty in grasping the spirit-mind complexes of its own entity, and further difficulty in expressing such understandings of self. Entities blocked in this area may have difficulties in accepting communication from other mind-body-spirit complexes. The next center is the pineal or indigo ray center. Those blocked in this center may experience a lessening of the influx of intelligent energy due to manifestations which appear as unworthiness. This is that of which you spoke. As you can see, this is but one of many distortions due to the several points of energy influx into the mind-body-spirit complex. The indigo ray balancing is quite central to the type of work which revolves about the spirit complex, which has its influx then into the transformation or transmutation of third density to fourth density. It being the energy center receiving the least distorted outpourings of love light from intelligent energy, and having also the potential for the key to the gateway of intelligent infinity. The remaining center of energy influx is simply the total expression of the entity's vibratory complex of mind, body, and spirit. It is as it will be. Balanced or imbalanced has no meaning at this energy level, for it gives and takes in its own balance. Whatever the distortion may be, it cannot be manipulated, as can the others, and therefore has no particular importance in viewing the balancing of an entity. Yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and pause there. That's a lot, and it's kind of the main, I feel like it's really the main, one of the main pieces of this session, this really beautiful step-by-step map of the energy centers and how they relate to blockage and balance. So, any thoughts, questions, comments, insights?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Blu-ray is the first energy center that is outgoing as well as inpouring. I have a vague idea what that means, but I was wondering if someone, like, my very vague understanding is like the previous energy centers, you sort of work, I don't know, it's like you work on it on your own, like you can love another person, but like the Blu-ray is really about like communicating with others and really like passing back. Is that, it's not a very clear understanding. Like what, can someone talk about this a little bit more?
I share your confusion, Shong. Like from other things Ra has said, I might have taken away that you can project energy from the green ray. You know, they've talked about, like in some of the healing teachings, they've talked about projecting healing energy through the green ray. So I don't know, it's a little bit confusing to me because I kind of would have guessed that the green ray could also be outpouring, because they also talk about green ray energy exchange. So how could you exchange energy unless there can be an outward flow of energy? I don't know. It's not clear to me why they say the blue ray energy is the first where it's outgoing. I don't have a clear picture, but I think of the thing that you said, Shong, about well, we can communicate. You know, we can vibrate through our we can pour out our understandings of wisdom through speech. I'm not sure. That might be overly simplistic.
Yeah, it's just the use of the words is tricky, because when they say it's the first, what does that mean? I mean, we perceive it as the first chakra, you know, the root chakra is 1, the procreation is 2, it's going up like that, going up the body. So then we're thinking, oh, green is before blue, but maybe that's not what they're saying.
Yeah, maybe, but they are going step by step. And at the 5th step, which is the Blu-ray, they say, okay, for the first time, I mean, I would assume they mean for the first time in this sequence that they're giving it.
Does this have to do with blockages in terms of, in general, when something is blocked through one through 4, or up to green ray, when there's a blockage, what that affects is your ability to take energy in. It doesn't really affect. Strictly, it talks about like blockages strictly affect your ability for energy to come in, whereas from 5th and up, blockages also affect energy going out. Is that?
Yeah, I think so. Like it's the way that I see it is it is a sequential system, and what Ra teaches is that, you know, there's sort of 2 directions of energy. One is the downward spiral, one is the upward spiral. And so what's being the energy that we're talking about here is the upward spiral. So like what we experience is the upward spiral. So it's like viewing the creation, interacting with other selves, and even thinking about ourself is in a way kind of you know, our personal selves is in a way kind of like the part of the upward spiral coming from outside. And each energy center has an opportunity to process that energy. And each of these different energy centers process a different bandwidth of the energy. And a blockages means that, in essence, a blockage is that we can't fully accept it. We can't fully take it in. We can't fully allow it. We can't fully, there's something about it that we can't fully integrate or process. And so that energy won't fully go up into the next center. And so it won't make the full connection from God to God. You know, there's the infinite one who's projecting it all, you know, and making available all this opportunity to experience. And then we experience that. And that experience is like coming into us, and it's like informing the one, it's informing God. But we won't be able to fully inform the infinite one of what we're experiencing if we're blocked. So it won't make it back up to the seat of, you know, the root of consciousness at the crown. So each center, if it's blocked, there's something about what we're experiencing that we can't fully let in, that we can't fully accept, that we can't fully allow. And that is the nature of blockage, as I understand it.
And is there a right order for like the blockages on the lower prevent energy from even reaching the higher, right? Is that right? So like
That's right.
you really need to start from the bottom and work your way up.
Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean that you can't have experiences that occur or that, that register in the higher centers if you are blocked in the lower. However, this is a whole thing. The dangers of having experiences in the upper triad, the higher centers, the spiritual centers, while there's still significant blockages and distortions in the lower centers can have a big repercussion. They can have I think this is where a lot of abuses of power comes. So if you have experiences in the higher centers, you're experiencing divine, you're experiencing a portion of the divine reality, and there's a lot of power there. That's where all the creative force comes from. But if you're still kind of stuck in stories of the self and still kind of stuck in separation, there's an incredible capacity for the abuse of that power. And on the negative path, that's what it's all about. The negative path, they do have access to, they do springboard beyond the heart, over the heart. They skip the heart. And it's all about abuse of divine power. I mean, all power is divine. All power comes from the one. But they are stuck in a story of separation of the self, and then they use that power to serve themselves. And then beings in the positive path do that accidentally. They don't mean to, but if they haven't healed the wounds and the blockages of what is not accepted, and they gain access to the higher levels, which is possible, then there's just a lot of capacity for, abusing the power in a way that they wouldn't choose if they knew better.
Consciously or unconsciously.
Right.
Projections.
Yeah. Yuri?
Yes, I had impression that from raw material that beyond that Nexia after beyond force ray are not possible to block. And here in this passage, he describes what happens if all the chakras are blocked. It's somehow new to me.
Yeah, so you're saying you remember that the upper chakras can't be blocked?
Yes.
Do you
Did you?
remember where Ra talks about that?
That I don't remember, but like I was 100% sure that upper chakras cannot be blocked. But it seems different from this passage.
Yeah. Yeah, I think well, one thing I can say, I don't know, I don't have the answer to that, because I don't have the impression that they cannot be blocked. I think here they say pretty clearly they can. But one thing that maybe you're remembering, or maybe this is just helpful to say anyway, is I believe that before they are potentiated, we don't work with them. Like they first have to be, like the upper centers have to first be potentiated before we can work with them. So of course, in first and second density life, none of the spiritual energy centers are even potentiated. They're not online. So first and second density life doesn't have anything to do with, or very, very little to do with, the upper centers. I mean, maybe in very advanced second density life, they begin to work with some of the energies of the upper chakras, but they're all nascent in all forms of energy. And in all forms of life. I think the whole rainbow of energy centers is there, but the upper ones just won't be on yet. Like they're sort of sleeping. They're unpotentiated. And I think that's also true in humans in third density life. I think until we get to a certain point in our evolution to begin contemplating universal love, universal truth, and our relationship with the source of everything, then they kind of are asleep. Like they have to be awoken. They have to be potentiated. And then once they're potentiated, and we begin to have experiences that relate to those centers, then I guess whatever we experience in that center, if we don't accept it, it produces some sort of blockage, somehow. So I don't know. I guess what I'm getting at, Yuri, is maybe like before they're potentiated, they're not blocked. It's not that they're blocked. It's just that they're not we're not running a lot of energy through them. And what running energy through our energy centers means is just having experience at that level of lessons of, at that level of what those energy centers are, what portion of the creation we're experiencing. I don't know if that makes sense.
He gave a thumbs up.
Great.
I have another question.
Yeah.
About the indigo ray. The indigo ray, quite central to the type of work which revolves about the spirit complex, which has its influx then into the transformation or transmutation of third to fourth density. I literally have no idea what Rod
Either.
is saying there.
Yeah, because you might think that the transition from third to fourth density has all to do with the heart chakra, right? Not the indigo ray. Am I tracking you there, Sean?
Yeah, what is he saying? Like yeah, I literally don't know what Rod's saying here. It's like a word soup to me. Is this the part where like to really harvest from third to fourth, like at some point, like the perfectly balanced entity can just go to third to fourth regardless of the harvest conditions, right?
Right, that's right.
So does this have to do with like if you open all the way up to indigo and then you perfectly balance your indigo, then you open the gateway to fourth? Is this roughly what he's saying?
That might be what they're referring to. Well, one thing I want to like just take a moment to point out is like, there's the gateway. They talk about the gateway to intelligent infinity. Well, what's interesting to me about that is that there's the gateway and then there's the key to the gateway. And what I understand, what they're saying here is that in the sixth ray, in the indigo ray, which is the pineal, that's the key. The gateway is 7. The gateway is the crown chakra. That's where we're connected to the infinite source. But we can't get into the gateway. We can't enter the gateway. We can't walk through the gateway until we unlock, the key is here. The key, like this is the lock on the gateway. Anyway, that realization dawned on me at a certain point into my reading the material. And so I thought I'd point it out that like there's kind of two portions to the gateway. There's the gateway itself, which is the 7th, and then there's the key to the gateway, which is 6th, which I think is fascinating. And we don't really work directly in the 7th. That's another thing that comes through here in the last paragraph we just read. We don't really work directly on the 7th. The 7th is an expression of 1 through 6. So whatever manifests in our 7th ray and our 7th chakra, our crown chakra, is just a picture. It's a holograph of everything, of all the first 6, 1 through 6. And we can't do anything to affect the 7th directly. So the only way we work on the 7th ray is through working on our, 1 through 6. And the only way we work through 1 through 6 is just by noticing what we don't accept. If you're on the positive path, is by noticing what you don't accept and working to accept it. And that's it.
Can I offer another observation?
Please.
About that query? Because what strikes my curiosity is where it says the indigo ray balancing is quite central to the type of work which revolves about the spirit complex. Specifically, it doesn't say mind, body, spirit complex. It really is isolating the spirit complex. So that seems to be an indication of maybe partly the answer to your question, John. Like, how does anybody interpret that? And where does the spirit complex exist? Where is it? Is it outside of I'm trying to like distinguish what that is.
Yeah.
Is it higher self?
So the way I make sense of it is that, okay, so the mind, the body, and the spirit complex are, they're different. They're basically like somewhat distinct aspects of ourselves that process energy. The body processes energy through sensation. The mind processes energy through mentation, and the spirit processes energy like kind of directly through light, through polarization, through the light, through like accepting God's light or not accepting God's light. But they're not things. Like you can't actually separate the spirit complex from the mind complex, or the mind complex from the body complex. Like they're not actually things, but they just have affinity for different aspects of our capacity to experience, right? So the body is, the way I understand it in the energy centers, the body resonates 1, 2, 3. The mind resonates 2 through 6. And the spirit resonates basically 6, 7, maybe also 5, probably 5. But like Scott Mandelker talks about this a lot. And you can kind of like make the divisions. You can make arguments for it's divided differently. But the spirit complex basically is the subtler aspects of energy processing. The mental processing is almost the whole thing, and the physical processing is only 1 through 3.
And the indigo is the ray. The indigo center is where like direct manifestation happens, right? Like converting energy, spiritual energy directly into like, I imagine like the whole thing about Jesus saying like, if you have a mustard seed of faith, you can move a mountain.
Yeah.
That action would be done via indigo ray.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yep. Yeah, and I share your confusion about the word salad there. I don't actually know. The indigo ray is the ray of the adept. The indigo ray is where magic happens. Magical work takes place. It's where healing work takes place. It's actually where teaching takes place too. Like a spiritual teaching is communicate. I mean, it of course connects to the blue ray and the throat chakra, but I think that to be able to transmit cosmic truths, it involves the indigo ray, and I think that's a type of adept work, is teaching.
Can I make another? It's a change of topic. So
Yeah, that's great. That's fine.
So on the negative path, if I were to take this, what Roger said, and apply it to the negative path, so they have really strong first 3, red, yellow, orange, red, orange, yellow, but they're all blocked. They just are they blocked or are they unblocked? They're blocked, right? And somehow they stay blocked. Their 4th is basically not really. 4th, 5th, is 6th the one that's active? They're all blocked, right? It's just really, really strong blocked. 1, 2, 3. Is that right?
This is a great question, Sean. Like, well, they generate a lot of power in the lower 3. They generate a lot of power that is about the separate self. But do they do that through blockage? I don't know. They have to love themselves. I mean, 4th density is the lessons are all about love, but on the negative path, it's love of self. So they love themselves. They genuinely they think they're the cat's pajamas. They those in the negative path think that their idea is what everybody needs. And they're willing to put all of their power behind spreading that idea, whatever it is. I don't know. It's a little bit of a conundrum, because it seems like from what Ra says here, 3rd ray specifically, blockages in the 3rd way will often manifest as distortion towards power manipulation and other social behaviors. So it's yeah, that's blockage. So yeah, I think what you're saying is right, Sean. Somehow they're blocked, but they also have a lot of power. I don't know.
maybe they're not blocked. Maybe it's just unblocked, but really
It could
distorted.
be. What if because the throat chakra is inpouring and outpouring, like what if you could have the lower ones blocked, yet still get power from source and just have it come in through the throat chakra?
Hmm. Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, I also don't think that there's a blanket condition there. I think there's a lot of variation in that. Like you could be on the negative path and maybe you have some blockages in this chakra or this one. Maybe the second one's clear, really strong for an individual. Maybe they got a blockage in the third one, in the third chakra, because of trauma, kind of like we all do. But I don't think it's like just a blanket condition. I think there's a lot of variations and enough blockages can, and the different chakras can definitely contribute to whether you're on the negative path or a positive path.
Yeah, I think the one thing that does stand out to me as pretty universal condition metaphysically on the negative path is the compaction of the heart chakra. Like there has to be very little activity in the heart chakra. Less than 5% care for others, compassion, genuine compassion for others, as a requirement for graduation, for clarifying one's path on the negative, and beyond third density on the negative path. So that looks like what I understand is if, for beings that can read energy centers, on the negative path, it's like darkness. Like the fourth ray is like, there's no light coming. You can't see any light coming through it. It's like pretty much dark.
I think
And that's kind of a requirement.
I think that's where sociopath comes in, where the
Yeah.
potential for like becoming what we would call a sociopath comes into play.
Right. Well, and what's fascinating about that, I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, from what I understand, people who study sociopathic behavior have kind of determined that 1 out of 10 people is either a sociopath or has sociopathic inclinations. And that matches what Ross says about, negative and positive polarity. Like 1 out of 10 souls graduates to the negative path. So there's a correlation between sociopathic behavior and what seems to be the general split between positive and negative souls, as Ra describes it.
1, 2 for negative entities, I think 1, 2, 3 are not blocked because I think fourth density graduation is like you look at the purple ray, violet ray, and the sum has to be at some level. And I think on the negative rate, they only have 1, 2, and 3. So that the sum at 7 has to be whatever's at 1, 2, and 3. You can't have. I imagine if it's blocked, it wouldn't add up into the 7, right? You would have to have really big 1, 2, and 3 that are just really distorted towards power, even though they're not blocked, to get that sum up in 7. Is that?
Well, so the negative beings, they cultivate their will in 1, 2, and 3, and they jump past the heart chakra. And there's also some places in the raw material where it says they may also jump past blue, but there's disagreement about it. Like it's unclear whether Ra says they bypass blue as well. I don't think they do. I think they just jump over the heart. And then they're able to do magical working. They open their indigo. I mean, their indigo ray. So the indigo is not closed, and maybe the fifth ray is not closed either. They just definitely overcome the heart, or jump past the heart. But the indigo is open. They're able to access the gateway to intelligent infinity, negatives. Like Rasputin, was a negative magician, and you did all kinds of negative magical workings by. Go ahead.
No, I was just thinking that same thing. I was going to
Yeah.
say, remember what they're saying about Rasputin and like how did he obtain so much power and the ability to have so much influence over people, but also manipulate other people.
Right.
And they talk about esoteric, or somewhere I heard that, esoteric workings.
Yeah, that's black magic.
Hmm.
So working in the indigo with a blocked heart.
And he has an awesome song now.
What'd you say?
And he has an awesome song now. You know what I'm talking about? The Rasputin song?
Mm-mm.
Oh,
Okay, never mind.
Who's it by?
God. It's by, is this it? Well, it's an old song. It was like in the night, it's from 1978.
I want to hear it.
Anyways, it's all over. It was there's one of the some dance game on Wii that made it really popular.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But I
Gonna look
think
into that.
it's a pretty awesome song.
isn't he a shipping clerk on Orion ship now?
No, that's Genghis Khan.
Oh, I was getting
Yeah,
this.
Genghis Khan. Okay. I've got it in my queue to listen to. Well, we made it about halfway through. I think we should probably yeah, I think we'll just finish up next week. So we can read a few more if you guys want to, or we can just go a little deeper into any of these what we've read so far. Oh, here's a point. Here's something we could talk about. Blockage in the first. I'm curious to hear if any of you have thoughts on this. I had gotten the impression from what Ross says about the first energy center, the red ray, that we don't really work on it directly either. But here they say the first balancing is of the Malkuth or Earth vibratory energy complex, called the red ray complex. And understanding and acceptance of this energy is fundamental. It seems like when there's blockage in the red ray, it has to do with not feeling safe, having disruptions in our sense of connection to the earth, fear of death, like not having enough of our basic needs met to continue the life, So can we work on balancing the red ray directly? Or, yeah, do you have any thoughts? Any of you have any thoughts about red ray?
Yeah, I think what I see when I do energy healing with folks and also with myself is the red ray or the earth chakra has a lot to do with grounding, like actually just what is our connection with the earth. And oftentimes what I sense is a lot of times it seems like folks that are where there's the blockage in the red ray is it's like we sort of pull our energy up and in and clench it, and so therefore cutting off our connection to the earth. And so in working on opening up and clearing the blockages there, it's like has a lot to do with trusting our connection to the earth, being and most of it is a lot of like trauma work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like if there's been a disruption early in our lives that makes us feel like we're not safe here, it's not safe to be on the earth, that's going to show up in the red ray as blockage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know why I took somewhere along the line, not in this session, I thought Rod said that the red ray is what it is. Like just like they say in this one that the violet ray is what it is.
Huh.
I thought somewhere they said like the red ray kind of is given at our birth.
Yeah,
like-
I'm looking for it, and I think I found it. It is specifically about sexual energy transfer.
Oh,
It is specifically in the context of okay, so well, it's 31.5.
mhm.
If sexual energy transfer occurs in green ray, I'm assuming in this case that there is no red ray energy transfer. Does this mean it is impossible then for this particular transfer to include fertilization and the birthing of an entity? I'm Ra. This is incorrect. There is always the red ray energy transfer due to the nature of the body complex. Yeah, I was going back and like I was also trying to. I remember Aaron like something along like yeah, like you don't account for red, you don't account for violet. It's only the stuff in the middle, and it is this. If I'm interpreting this correctly, it's specifically about sexual energy blockages because red ray is just the physical act of having sex and transferring that sexual energy. Just having that act is an automatic red energy transfer. Which is why in the context of sexual energy transfer, there's no consideration of the red ray.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess does that make sense? Like you can have a blockage existing, you can have a blockage in your red ray that would affect your experience on this planet, but when it comes to sex, there's always a red ray transfer.
Mm-hmm. It does make sense. Yeah, and in the context of sexual energy transfer, and the quote you just pointed out, that makes sense. But what I'm remembering is slightly different, which is like the impression that I got is that basically each mind body spirit complex, whether we're designing our own incarnation or whether it's, whether like we're kind of coming in automatically in our higher selves and the logos are kind of like, doing the work of designing the incarnation, we each kind of come in with a certain, like the volume's turned to a certain, the volume of the red race is turned up or down to a certain amount. Like different people just have different amounts of like raw energy in the body, just like raw, like it's almost like Jing. It's, it's almost like the kidney energy. It's like, from my understanding, I don't know the system well, but from my understanding in Chinese medicine, like Jing is fixed. Like you just have a certain amount of it. You don't ever like regenerate it. Once you use it, it's gone or something like that. And it's like the red ray is like just each person just kind of has a certain amount of like power, just bodily physical energy or something. And again, I don't know if I'm misremembering this, but I thought like we each kind of come in and red ray is what it is. And Ra had said like, you can't really change once you're in your incarnation, you can't really change how much energy comes into, feeds the body, the physical body. You can change how efficient you are with using it. You can, whatever, but you can't really change the red ray voltage or something like that. Anyway, but it does seem like, back to this session, it does seem like they say that you can work on it. And from what you were saying, Amanda, that makes a lot of sense to me. Like it does seem like you can work on changing by healing, you can change how safe you feel, how like connected to the earth you feel and how safe you feel being here through doing healing work and trauma work.
Yeah. Seems like both are true.
Yeah.
There's an interesting, I was doing a search, 47.8, they actually talk about the different bodies for each ray.
Right.
And they say red ray is, it's your chemical body. It's not the actual body. It's literally the atoms.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the orange ray is like the animal body. It's like the body's like the assembled body, but it's not yet the human body. It's just like the animal body. And then the yellow ray body is like is what we think of as ourselves, is like the animal body that's been inspirited. And here we are. And then there's the ectoplasmic body. And then the fifth is like what the Astral,
Devaconic,
and then the
and then etheric,
and then
and
Buddhic.
then Buddhic, yeah.
That's pretty fascinating. The map of the bodies. Okay, we have just a few minutes left. I want to ask you guys, Don asked the question in 1511, can you tell me how you balance the ego? And Ra says, we cannot work with this concept as it is misapplied, and understanding cannot come from it. Why do you think they say that?
I think Russ says something like this because in their understanding there is no such concept as the ego. There is mind complex, body complex, and spirit complex. So there are archetypes of different kind, and then you have conscious, which you have to work on through the mind, and like there is no ego in their regard, and you have just to choose whether you go on the service to self or service to others path.
Yep.
Yeah, and maybe framing it in that way is damaging. Like it, I think doesn't Ra. There was some question where Ra was like, it's really damaging if you tried to like suppress your ego or something like that.
Yep. Yeah, I think Jim actually asked the question. We have, our spiritual systems on Earth some say that you have to destroy the ego. And then and then Don asked that question to Ra, and Ra's like, just what you said, Shang. Ra's like, really is like, no, you that's not how they disagree. I can't remember what they said, but yeah, they say like it's really important to not suppress anything. We need to understand it, and if you suppress it, it just you can't understand it. Yeah, and I think what you say, Yuri, is really true. Ra's just underscoring the fact that it's not a thing, and it's really challenging because it's a word that gets used so much, and it's helpful in a way. It's helpful to an extent, but not to the extent that we turn it into a concept that's like crystallized into a thing. Ra's like, it's not a thing. The ego isn't a thing. But they do refer to it the next question. They say, this is what you refer to as the ego. And I think that's when they get to the indigo ray. Yeah. Those blocked in the indigo ray center may experience a lessening of the influx of intelligent energy due to manifestations which appear as unworthiness. This is that of which you spoke. This is the ego, oh no, wait. Sorry, I may have got that wrong. In the third ray, they say,
I think it's based on the chakras which are blocked or unblocked. The kind of concept of ego is coming in, and it's very different from which chakra the person is working on. Because the third chakra is very much about ego, about manipulating others and things like this. But then once the person goes far beyond the third chakra, unblocking it and going to the fourth and fifth, there is something which reacts or accept or doesn't accept. And on each level, you have different understanding. So in a way, the concept of ego can create misconception and misunderstanding more than it can help.
Yeah. If what Ra is saying is, I think that what we call ego is just is just like a condition of our energy bodies where we're overly identified as the separate self, you know, and we're not like fully grokking our connection with life, then, you know, then it is a condition we can experience, but that's distinct from a thing. Like calling the ego a thing can give us the idea that we need to like, you know, that we need to kill the ego or we need to this or that. But I think Ra is really driving home the point that it's not a thing. You know, I think there is some accuracy to, you know, referring to the ego as like a state of being, but that's just a state of being. That's just where we're at with our balance of energies, versus imagining that somewhere inside of us or some part of our mind body spirit complex there is an ego as sort of a metaphysical object, or as like a, you know, as a fixed thing. And that's the distinction I think is really important, is like Ra's like, yeah, the ego is not a thing. There are some qualities and conditions of the energy centers that if they're in a certain configuration, this is what you refer to as the ego. And it's funny, like even in the law, even in the study group over the years, even though Ra says we cannot work with this concept, it's still, you know, it's still so ingrained in a lot of our, you know, process. It's such a helpful shorthand to refer to, you know, something that we all experience. You know, people use it a lot. I still use it, you know, even though I understand that it's not a thing.
Let go of my ego.
That's cute.
Yeah,
Makes me want some toasted waffles.
I was gonna say you have to been around long enough to see the Lego by Ego waffle commercials or whatever. So my one thought is it's 5 o'clock, but I mean, because I'm remembering when they're talking about discipline of the personality, like that's a thing, right? So what is a personality distinct from the ego? Or is it, you know, I don't have the answer to that question, but
It's a really rich question, Scott. What is the ego, or what is the personality distinct from the ego? Do you have a what's your reply to that question?
I don't know. I just have that. I'm just wondering in this conversation,
Yeah.
why Ross' response to that question was what it was,
Mhm.
that we were trying to understand, and then what's their understanding of the personality as something distinct from the ego.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's very much distinct. I think that you know, we can conceive of entities. We might know of entities who we wouldn't say have an ego, you know, selfless entities or whatever, or have much of an ego, but they still have personality, right? They still have there's still an essential quality of who they are and how they express and what they're interested in, and, you know, their unique path in life that comes from what we could call a personality. Yuri, what do you have to say about it?
I don't think there is. I never met, or I don't remember the concept of personality in raw material, and I recall words like I cannot quote properly, but it's like we are living what we are not. We experiencing what we are not. So we are not a personality. We are just oneness, and we are just dancing thoughts. But there is no such thing as a personality. It's just our Maya illusion.
Right.
But then Ross talks about the discipline of the personality and how important it is.
Has a lot to do with magical work, I think. And I mean, discipline in general, like it has to, like, what does it mean to be disciplined in a, like, in some way you're like holding like an identity, right? Like a work, any profession is a discipline, right? And in that sense, it's like you're holding a like an energy pattern that is distinct in a way. It's distinct from oneness. It's a part of oneness, but it's distinct from oneness. And to hold to in order to do like really complex magical work, I think you have to be able to like hold certain energies to manifest certain things. That's what I associate with when he talks about magical personality and disciplines of magical personality and disciplines of personality. Like in order to do certain things, you have to be able to like. When I hear discipline of personality, I think like the average person would not be able to manifest like whatever they want right in front of them because they don't believe it's possible. Like you need a certain amount of discipline to just know, to have enough faith and just to know beyond all doubt that like, yes, I could manifest whatever I want in front of me. Like that's not something an average person would do. They don't have the discipline to do that. In the same way that like an average person, like, I mean, to study for any job, you need to like really be disciplined and to do it well, right? I think it's the same thing to become like a talented magician.
Right.
Well, I have an idea now. So the ego, just to say distinct from personality, is kind of what we were referring to before, is the identity that we have here in this incarnation or each incarnation has to do with that. Whereas, because it's the ego it's that which dies, right? Well, the body dies, but also that identity with Scott, or however I'm identified with the name in this, you know. But also there's this quote by Hank Wesselman. I can't remember it exactly, but it's very interesting. And because some of his experience were so extraordinary also. And he said something like, how strange it is to know yourself as this cosmic being, like not separate from anything, and then to come here and crawl back into the small shell of an ego. And so that's an interesting perspective, right? Because if you know yourself, if you've had an experience as that, as beyond, totally not separate, and you can still maintain self-awareness, awareness of self, but you're not caught in ego identity.
Yep. Yuri, you want to make a comment? I think after that we'll probably close. We're a little bit past time.
No, sorry.
Oh, you were okay. Got it.
I skip.
Okay. Well, I feel really juiced by this conversation. I feel like I could just keep going and going. It's so interesting, and so it feels so relevant to my path, these concepts. So thank you all for your contributions and for your questions and your presence and curiosity. It's been a joy. And we're done for this week. We'll pick up again where we left off next week. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep.
Good to see you all again.
Thanks, everybody.
See you guys.
Love you all. Bye-bye.
Love
Thank
you.
you very much. Bye.
Bye, Aaron.
Bye-bye.